The offspring of the predator have vanished. They were discovered resting upon a person's chest. Commander Vex High's forearms quivered as she gazed at the security footage, her compound eyes widening with a blend of fear and incredulity. The Zephyrian apex, predator towered at nearly 8 feet, her chitinous exoskeleton shimmering beneath the stark illumination of the space station's security office. But at this moment, she felt diminutive, like the smallest of scavenger beetles. "Show me again," she rasped through her translator, her voice laced with the subtle menace that would typically drive prey species into a frenzied escape. Security Chief Martinez, a robust individual with salt and pepper hair, reviewed the footage with a certain lack of finesse. The timestamp indicated 3 hours prior, when Vex High's twin cubs had inexplicably slipped away from their quarters during what was meant to be their monitored rest time. The young Zephyrians, each comparable in size to Earth panthers despite their mere 6 months of age, possessed razor-sharp claws, venomous spines, and instincts refined over millions of years of evolution for the purpose of hunting and killing. They vanished from the corridor. 7G, Martinez articulated, his tone unwavering even while discussing one of the most perilous species within the Galactic Federation. "We followed their movements through the ventilation system until the footage transitioned to a different camera angle." Vex High observed in astonished quiet as her young ones appeared from an air vent into the area where humans lived. The events that followed challenged all expectations. She grasped the essence of her kind, the intricacies of humanity, and the fundamental principles governing the cosmos. The young bears had crept quietly into the workspace of Dr. Sarah Chen, a xenobiologist who had been laboring into the late hours of the night. Any sensible individual would anticipate devastation. The youth of the Zephyrian kind were known for their fierce nature, with their predatory instincts frequently taking precedence over their nascent intellect. They had taken down fully matured Thulicans before they could even manage to walk correctly. Instead, the security footage revealed something unimaginable. Dr. Chun raised her gaze from the datapad as the first cub made its entrance. She ought to have let out a cry. She ought to have activated the emergency alert. She ought to have been shredded in mere moments. Instead, she had grinned. "Greetings." Her voice emerged from the audio feed, tender and soothing. "You too must be the Vex Highs, my dear little ones. Are you unsure of your direction?" The young ones had become still as ice. Their instinctual drives clashed unmistakably with an enigmatic force, one that had eluded the records of every Zephyrian researcher. The first cub, Kethra, had tilted her head in a manner that could only be interpreted as inquisitive. The second, Morden, had made a cautious advance. Dr. Chun gently placed her pad aside and offered her hand, palm facing upward. "It's acceptable. I am familiar with your mother. She frequently mentions both of you throughout our research sessions." The events that followed would be a topic of conversation in xenobiological circles for centuries to come. Both cubs had come near the human, neither stalking nor hunting. They approached with a careful intrigue typical of young creatures when faced with something unfamiliar yet safe. Kethra had delicately examined Dr. Chen's hand, her whiskers quivering with curiosity. As the human softly caressed the area behind the cub's ear, an action that typically would provoke a fierce defensive reaction, Kethra achieved something never before seen in the evolutionary timeline of Zephyrians. She had softly murmured. "Unfeasible," Vex High observed quietly, her gaze fixed on her daughter as she nestled against the human's hand. The recording persisted. Dr. Chun had skillfully managed to entice both cubs onto the small sofa in her quarters. She persisted in her task, one hand mindlessly tracing along Morden's spinal ridges, as he lounged across her lap like a large, lazy earth cat. Kethra nestled against her, the weight of her large head comfortably settling on the human's shoulder. In less than an hour, both cubs had drifted off into a deep slumber, their innate defenses withdrawn, their bodies entirely at ease in a rare exhibition of trust that even adult Zephyrians seldom displayed. even towards their own partners. "They've been there for 3 hours," Martinez remarked softly. "Dr. Chun communicated with our office an hour ago, but she requested that we refrain from disturbing them. She remarked, and I quote, 'They appear weary.'" Vex High gazed intently at the live feed. Her offspring, her lethal, highly skilled apex predator offspring, were resting soundly on a human who was lighter than either of them. Dr. Chun had succumbed to slumber as well. Her data pad lay abandoned on the floor, one arm wrapped around it in a protective gesture. Kethra, as Morden's tail lay over her legs, resembling a warm, living cover. "I require clarity on this," Vex High murmured, her voice scarcely audible. "Throughout the entirety of Zephyrian history, our youth have never, they simply do not. We struggle with trust," Martinez inquired gently, "with recognizing safety, with understanding when someone intends no harm." Vex High's multifaceted gaze locked onto the human security chief. "Your kind is diminutive, so delicate. Your physiology has been the subject of our study. You possess neither natural weapons nor armor, nor any venomous traits. You ought to be the hunted." What made her certain they wouldn't take her life? Martinez paused, observing the tranquil image displayed on the screen. "Dr. Chun has been collaborating with your team for 2 years. She has mastered your language, embraced your customs, and absorbed your history. She expresses her thoughts about you and your children with heartfelt warmth." Perhaps he hesitated, selecting his phrases with precision. "Perhaps your young ones can perceive what we humans have understood all along, which is, being at the top of the food chain isn't solely about possessing the keenest talons or the most lethal toxins. It's about understanding when to refrain from employing them." Martinez smiled. "Dr. Chun perceived your children for what they truly are, infants who have been distanced from their mother. And in some way, they understood that she perceived them in that manner." On the monitor, Kethra shifted gently in her slumber, burrowing closer to Dr. Chen's neck. The individual instinctively clutched her safeguard, even in slumber. Vex High sensed a transformation in her perception of the cosmos. Perhaps the greatest tool of humanity wasn't their advancements or their ability to adjust. Perhaps it was their mysterious knack for gazing upon a being crafted by nature to bring about their demise and perceiving not a threat, but rather a vulnerable soul yearning for solace. As she approached Dr. Chen's quarters to gather her cubs, Vex High pondered, in a galaxy teeming with apex predators, what role did the humans play? The response, she believed, was something much more perilous and much more extraordinary than anyone had yet comprehended.